But let's look ahead to the upcoming Premier League season, shall we, Perry? And Chelsea announced that they have become the first top-flight club to ask fans to prove that they are either fully vaccinated or that they will have a negative COVID test result in order to attend their games this coming season. And when you think about it, I mean, what are we, 2 weeks away now from the start of the Premier League season? And it sort of makes you wonder why it's taken either one for clubs to get to this point where they're only now making the announcements, or the fact that the Premier League themselves have not made it clear and obvious for everyone to understand the protocols that are going to be put in place.
You need more leadership from the Premier League and from the EFL as well, because I think they're saying Boris Johnson might bring it in October, where most people have had a chance to get their double jabs of crowds of over 20,000. Well, I think it should be that you need to be double jabbed or you've had a negative test anyway, because if there's people who are anti-vaccination, they've still got the opportunity just to have a negative test. It's not what you're saying, because you haven't had a double jab, you're not coming to football. So you've still got a chance to go. And most of the new stadiums now, obviously in the Premier League and Championship, they've got concourses around, quite wide concourses around them anyway, where you can set up stations before you get into the actual stadium. And for the clubs that haven't, if it meant that you would have to have another venue where you went to in the local area, or maybe it was a community centre, or whether it was a social club, and the EFL clubs might say, well, that, costs us money, but I'm sure you'd get club volunteers who would gladly man those stations for people to prove that they're double jabbed or they've had a negative test before you go into the stadium, because we've come this far down the line. As a football fan, obviously, which I am, and I'm pretty sure other football fans, if it meant a bit of an inconvenience, which it might be, but you want to go to games, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't do it. Why you wouldn't, it might take another hour and a half out of your day, to go and prove that you've had the double jab or negative test. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. Because you're safeguarding. What you're trying to do is minimise the risk for thousands and thousands of people. So I don't see why anybody would have a problem with minimising the risk, because you're only trying to make them safe. Yeah. Yeah, so, no, I'm with you. I completely understand where you're coming from. And I think the fact that we've been denied football for an extended period of time, I know fans were sort of welcome back in a small number towards the end of last season. But, majority of people have been crying out to want to get back into the football stadiums to support their team. So if it means you have to take a test or you prove that you're double jabbed, it's not an inconvenience, really, because ultimately it's just to get you in there. And we were talking about this off air, and I didn't realise that when you're taking these lateral flow tests, if you do them at home, I had no idea until I had to do this the other day for the first time, because any other lateral flow tests I've done, I've gone to one of the actual centres where they do it and process it all for you. They swab your throat and swab your nose.
You still swab it yourself, but they process the results themselves and then send you a message. Right. I didn't realise when you do it at home, you do it yourself, and it's a simple tick the box of a positive or a negative. And I don't know how other people do it, but I'm sure there have been people that can manipulate it in favour.
Well, all you've got to do is just put in the code, and when it asks you, then you just tick the box that says negative. Yeah. So you would get, let's be honest, you would get a small percentage of people that you would say, if it was positive, they'd think, I feel all right, I don't feel too bad.
Perry, would they even take the test? All you have to do is
put the code in. Exactly, yeah. So, but then you're just asking for people's honesty and integrity. But if you minimise it, so you'll get a small percentage of people that would do that. But this is
where I'm saying maybe it's best that they have to go to the centre as well to get the proof that way, rather than doing it at home. Now, I don't know how.
But I think that would come down to cost, though, Natalie, to be fair. They would say, how much is that going to cost to set up a testing sort of centre?
Sure, but my local council do it I can just go to the local council. Yeah. It's no different to just.
But will they be able to handle
I don't
thousands
know.
of people at that time? So they might have to get more staff in. Then if it's NHS staff that are testing, or they can train other people. I
see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I just think going to having your double jab, or proving that a negative test, whether it's a PCR test, lateral flow test, I think that most fans would do it, because, as you said, let's remember we had no live football for a period of time because football was curtailed completely. Then we had empty stadiums, which I actually thought the games and the standard of football was really good, considering they were in. I only saw 3 or 4 games that looked like training games. And then we were craving to get back in to watch live football. And at that time, if you'd have said to fans then for you to get back in and watch your team live every Saturday or Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, this is what you had to do.
Yeah.
They would have said, yep, I'll do that. Now, because we're a bit further down the line and everybody knows what COVID is, and that fear factor probably has gone a little bit because it was unknown from before, you don't want people getting a little bit blasé and complacent about it. Because the last thing you want is, if you're not going to set these protocols in place, then you have crowds, even under 20, say you have 6,000-7,000 going in to my club, like Colchester, say there's 4,000 or 5,000 people, and then you get an outbreak from that one game, and then all those people who they know then have to self-isolate. Do you know what I mean? Then you put yourself on the back foot again. So I don't see any problem with having your double jab or with your test.
Well, maybe we should ask the listeners if they have a problem with it. You know, if you have to prove that you are either double jabbed or have a negative test, is that an issue for you? Let us know. You can ring us on 08717 223344. You can send us a text at 81089 or tweet us at talkSPORT. If that's the only way that you're going to be able to go to live sporting events, is it really that much of an inconvenience?
And clubs might say that they'd be worried if a high percentage of people didn't want to do that they wouldn't get fans into the stadiums or grounds. But I think they would, because there's going to be a majority of fans who would do it.
Well, I still
think you would.
I think you're right. And I also think you only have to look back to that time when we were allowing fans back in a smaller number. And I think pretty much a lot of clubs probably had it oversubscribed. So I think you will have more than enough fans still coming through the gates, even if they do have to prove it one way or the other.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.